What's up guys? In this video I'll react to a video by Moon when influencers mess with the wrong people. It looks like it's gonna be a good watch, so I'm kinda excited for that. Hopefully it won't let me down.
More and more influencers are having their egos go completely wild. The rise of iPad kids, narcissism, and terrible role models is making influencers feel increasingly entitled and out of touch, using anybody in the public they can to gain more views and clout with no regard for others. But what happens when an influencer messes with the wrong person? What happens when the person they're messing with is a criminal or mentally unhinged? Well, in this video, we'll be going over influencers that were humbled after messing around with the wrong people, beginning with Tanana Cook. April 2nd, 2023. Tana and his one-man filming crew were in Dollstown Center Mall and had decided to play some recordings over and over saying, "Hey Dips, stop thinking about my twinkle," through translation out from Spanish.
I think some guy even died, like doing a prank. Hold on, I need to close my window. Yeah.
To English. The intention was to play it close to the victim and get his reaction.
Hey, quit thinking about my twinkle.
They were in the mall trying to find a place with no security as they had been stopped filming before. However, Tanner, forgetting his manners once again, got too close to the wrong guy. Alan Colley was a DoorDash delivery man and was picking up an order at the mall. When Tanner began shoving his phone 15 centimeters away from his face, Alan looked confused and not really that impressed. He tells Tanner to back off 3 times, saying no and stop, and even threatens to call the police before he finally shoves the phone away.
No.
Hey, quit thinking about my twinkle.
Get out of my business like half time. Stop.
But Tanner still doesn't take the hint and persists in the prank, waiting for a better reaction. Well, it was at this point that Tanner got the reaction that he was ultimately pushing for when Alan swiftly moved his jacket aside and pulled out a gun. With no hesitation, Alan shot Tanner in his lower abdomen, leaving shoppers in the mall panicked at the sound of the shot. Tanner's filmer then quickly called 911 for assistance while the mall security scrambled to find Alan to arrest him. While Alan was arrested, it is important to note that Alan surrendered and was completely compliant with the security and then the police later on. But it's safe to say that Alan's reaction was completely psychotic and absolutely reprehensible and immoral, with Tanner obviously not deserving this. However, he could have done this because being a delivery man, it is possible that Alan was aware of potential dangers, and with this particular prank, perhaps this set off alarm bells of being robbed. Even still, it's completely immoral. Tanner was then soon taken.
Damn, dude. These kids just don't know how, like, dude. Looking at their faces, you could see that they're just soulless, like idiots. Really not taught manners at all.
Into the hospital with a gunshot wound through his stomach and liver, but survived the ordeal. In fact, he even posted from his hospital bed and seemed to enjoy the attention of the media.
I was just playing a prank, a simple practical joke, and the guy didn't take it very well and shot me.
After being arrested, Alan Coley would spend 8 months in jail before the court date. The entire 20-second footage was played out in court and both sides presented good points. Prosecutor Eden Holmes pushed that Alan had no cause to shoot in a mall, with the potential to hurt other shoppers, and that Tanner had not touched Alan and had presented no dangerous.
Like, you keep bothering people like this just for attention, just for views or clout. That's dude, that's so bad. Dude, what are we gonna do with this? Stupid age, stupid social media. Abolish.
Indications in his actions. Eden said they were holding cell phones, not weapons, and that Alan's actions were unreasonable. Alan Coley's attorney presented a stronger case as Alan had asked Tanner to back off 3 times, and since Tanner was taller and had the back of his fellow intruder, Alan actually acted out of self-defense. In the end, after 5 hours of deliberation, the jury actually agreed more to Alan acting out in self-defense as they delivered a not guilty verdict to aggravated malicious wounding and a guilty verdict to unlawful discharge of a weapon in an occupied building. Alan would walk out with time served. In an interview with Tanner and his mother, Tanner stood behind his mother, mocking Alan.
Regardless of the outcome, you know, the jury's the jury, and we totally respect how our law plays out. And
what an idiot, dude. What a fucking idiot, dude.
this was the outcome today, and we respect that. Let's go.
This was a man who was doing his job as a delivery man, and whose life was completely ruined because of Tanner's obnoxious pranking. When his mother saw this, she merely playfully smacks her son and continues walking off. The lesson clearly escaped Tanner, who later in the same interview said he would continue with his channel and probably still do pranks. But it seems they too don't intend to right the wrong in their son.
Opinion about his content on YouTube. Do you agree with it?
I support Tanner in whatever he decides to do, and I'm going to continue supporting him.
This is terrible, psychotic iPad kid behavior, and messing with innocent people to get paid for it by YouTube isn't the message you want your kids to learn. Tana's own words about his channel are that his goal is to bring people who are watching some kind of relief. This is a little contradictory at best. He further elaborated that his viewers like when people get frustrated on camera. As for Alan Coley, he intended to move and start fresh elsewhere. However, his face will always be well known to all of Tana's followers, so it's very possible that Alan might not be able to fully escape the never-ending effects of this prankster. A lot of content creators seem to think they can do anything they want without consequence, that the rules don't apply to them because of their masses of followers. Unfortunately, their decisions can catch up to them, and they soon learn that they can't afford the cost of fame. Fernando Perez Gaba is a tragic example of this. From the moment he started, Fernando wasn't afraid to show off his wealth and prove he knew how to make a profit with ease. As a teen in his hometown, Fernando had his first brush with the business world, delivering pizzas and selling sandwiches. 3 years later,
isn't this like the case where he came back to his hometown and then like mobs caught him and then he didn't end up like very well?
Later, his father died, leaving him, his brother, and his mother with an inheritance. Fernando used the money to buy his first low-end car, which he repaired and resold to make a profit. Realizing he'd stepped into a lucrative business, Fernando doubled down on his cycle of buying, repairing, and reselling, and he made quite a bit of money doing so. So soon enough, he went from repairing old cars to renting luxury sport cars and trading crypto. At the age of 24, the Argentinian had a garage filled with expensive cars and an eye for business that never seemed to let him down. At this point, he turned himself into a franchise, amassing over 900,000 followers on Instagram, to whom he sold the dream of becoming as rich as he was by following in his footsteps. It was a great dream to have, especially in Argentina, where the economy was failing. He was doing so well for himself that he moved to Miami, the mecca for the young rich, to open a jet ski company, and then to Spain to establish a crypto trading business. However, as much as he boasted about his wealth, there was something about his content that had people believing that something wasn't quite right. As much as Fernando boasted about his wealth, he never shared his net worth. You'd think someone with this lifestyle would jump at the chance to boast about something else.
He was in debt.
He never had. Why would he want to hide something like that? While his Instagram posts usually consisted of luxury car, selfie, or trading advice, Fernando's life wasn't nearly as luxurious behind the scenes. According to his brother, Fernando was suffering from an anxiety disorder, which he was receiving psychiatric treatment for. Fernando claimed he was making millions through crypto. The truth was, he had developed a gambling addiction during the pandemic, lost a bunch of money investing in crypto, and found himself in an insane amount of debt, reportedly owing the Argentinian tax agency millions. Worse so, Fernando seemed determined to create problems for himself wherever he went. He got into a fight with a police officer in Mar del Plata over a breathalyzer test, and there was even a case open that linked him to drug trafficking. His lack of care in certain aspects of his business was evident. Quickly, sponsors removed their branding from his dealerships due to his mismanagement, but Fernando got into a heated argument with one of the clients after he failed to deliver cars at the promised time, an unfortunate pattern that would lead to an untimely end. Over the years, Fernando registered several companies. However, some had no tax identification number, and others were suspected of existing solely for fraud. While it initially seemed like Fernando had moved to America because it offered better opportunities, it's more likely that he ran away to avoid paying the money he owed. Unfortunately for Fernando, the tax agency wasn't the only one he owed money to, and the consequences of his actions would soon catch up with him. In July of 2023, after years of avoiding his home country, Fernando returned to Argentina on a trip that was only supposed to last a few days. His posts had become less flashy and contained cryptic messages, and on the 15th, Fernando wrote his final post, quote, "Hello mum, I needed to clear my head as always, and from here I'm realizing two things, that we can't escape from problems and that problems will follow us. Well, if something happens to me, everyone is warned." Suddenly, there was silence for 8 days. People suspected he had disappeared, but no one knew where. All anyone knew was that Fernando had failed to return the keys to the apartment he was renting, and that he hadn't answered his phone. He seemed to have disappeared off the face of the planet. But then, on the 23rd, he was found. You see, a couple of children were playing soccer in Buenos Aires, the capital of Argentina, when they noticed a large red suitcase abandoned near the river. Understandably curious, they went over to investigate and discovered something that would traumatize them for the rest of their lives: the dismembered body of Fernando. They ran to tell their parents, who contacted the police, and they managed to identify Fernando by his tattoos and fingerprints. This was confirmed when the authorities found his head floating in a rucksack downstream. An autopsy of the body revealed that Fernando had been shot shot 3 times before his body was dismembered. While the local media reported that this was the work of a professional due to how clean the amputation was, the local authorities believed otherwise. Sergio Berni, the security minister for Buenos Aires, said that Fernando's murder had happened, quote, quickly and almost madly, unlike a professional. The situation was very spectacular. While on the one hand, Fernando's death and subsequent dismemberment could have been the result of a robbery and disposal gone wrong, it's far more likely that this was the result of a disgruntled investor. While the authorities have denied the possibility of the murder having been done professionally, this could be due to fear. Fernando owed a bunch of people money, including a local gang who were demanding $40,000, an investor named Adrian Tessi, and a man who was only identified by his surname, Iglesias. Everyone had motivation. While Tessi had threatened to rip off his head for playing around with his money, after Fernando failed to deliver the money he said he had, Iglesias seems to be the most likely suspect in this tragic story. A week before his murder, Fernando received death threats from Iglesias, who claimed the influencer owed his son $70,000. In several voicemails, he tells him, "I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna do something worse to you. I'm gonna gouge out your eyes and cut off your hands so that you can't have any more money in your life. I swear on my children that I have no problems going to jail. And quote, you betrayed me and you caught me. I have a poison with you that I hate you." Finally, Iglesias told Fernando they should see each other face to face. A week later, he was dead. Now, I'm not claiming that he did it, and I wouldn't accuse him of doing so, but I'll let you draw your own conclusions. The only person who has been arrested for his murder is a woman linked to some paperwork that was found in the suitcase. But today, the case is still unknown about who actually did this, with the real suspect still at large. Fernando is a tragic lesson of what happens when an influencer has to live a luxurious lifestyle they can't even afford, getting mixed up with the wrong people, all to maintain a broken facade. And some YouTubers in particular have, unlike annoying YouTube pranksters, been tragically caught up in the wrong place for discussing the wrong things. A sassy Spanish 36-year-old YouTuber was killed in a restaurant in front of her husband by 2 armed men. And although she was a love character, it didn't take much for pointed fingers to mark some probable causes of this heartless incident. Leslie Ann started her online magazine called El Sirion in 2012.
A woman? What? What could she have done so bad that she'd be
with her husband, Samuel, in Acapulco, Mexico. It was in this beachside city where Leslie set out to make a name for herself. She would dress up with loud and colorful makeup and a huge wig, and present an online Spanish persona, Nana Pelucas, which means grandma in wigs. She was talented, well-loved, and certainly knew how to draw in her audience. She spoke clearly and would chat as if you were sitting right next to her. Her topics would include makeup, fashion, to more controversial topics of politics, and sometimes she would call out any malicious happenings from cartels. For the most part, it was tolerated. Nothing that would merit her murder to begin with, but Leslie Ann did step on some toes. In public, she would start gaining a lot of attention and would handle it with grace. She would do interviews with officials and she gained a lot of respect with her audience. It wasn't all so serious. She would be seen often joking and laughing with people around her, but behind closed doors, she would stir the pot with the latest gossip on the cartels and politicians. She was known for her mocking tone in delivering the latest news. It seemed like Leslie lost her filter and would speak her mind as though there were no consequences ahead. However, the threats would begin to pour in. Now, for those who don't know, Acapulco, Mexico is one of the most dangerous places in Mexico. It's the heartland of the cartel. Once a tourist hotspot destination, has now been overrun by criminals and insane murder rates. She was in the heart of the criminal underworld of Mexico. And soon enough, word spread to these people, and they would send her a warning. Now, the way the cartels would deliver their messages left no question of who was on their radar. Leslie's name came up on a few of the threats that they would leave written on a piece of material or blankets out in the open for all to see. This was meant as a warning to back off from whatever upset them, and one to be taken very seriously. There was a website where you could report any movements of gang members, and there were a lot of accusations thrown around on that site. The gang suspected that Leslie was one of the administrators of the website, which they wanted taken down for obvious reasons. It turned out they were correct, that she was an anonymous administrator, but she wasn't the only one. The threats were aimed at all the administrators in hopes that it would be enough to instill fear to shut this site down. Leslie would even be threatened by government employees who were linked to gangs. There was no mistaking it. Leslie knew she was on thin ice, with the overflow of threats in every direction. However, Leslie didn't let their warnings faze her. It was business as usual. If she wasn't offending the cartels, she was offending the politicians. In one post, Leslie says, quote, "The snotface didn't even have enough support for re-election, and now he thinks he'll become a senator," followed by her mocking laugh. Of course, this didn't sit well with the politicians, so Leslie stacked up another enemy in her trail of unfiltered comments. On February 5th, 2018, Leslie and her husband husband were at a restaurant enjoying the evening when suddenly 2 armed men walked straight up to Leslie and shot her several times in the head and chest. There was no question that the act was deliberate and intentional, as Leslie was their only target, and the 2 men suddenly disappeared, fleeing from the scene. Now, why did this happen on this specific day, under such awful circumstances? Well, it was rumored that Leslie had recently gotten access to some very damaging information about the cartels, and that in order to stop that information from getting out, she was murdered before she had the chance. However, there isn't too much evidence to support.
Damn, what the heck is this part of the world? Damn, that's so scary. Oh, what the heck, dude? So scary, what the...
This rumor, and if her husband knows, he's definitely not telling, and who could blame him? He witnessed firsthand what might happen to him if he did. And the sad fact is, this is a regular occurrence in many parts of Mexico, with the country being known as the most dangerous place for journalists. In 2018, as many as 10 confirmed journalists had been murdered according to Reporters Without Borders, and over 100 since December 2018, if not more. And Acapulco itself is the second most violent city in the world. Not the best place for a damsel to be throwing mud. However, it did shine a light on how truly bad the situation is in Mexico, where just calling out criminals will have you left in the dirt with no repercussions and the government looking the other way because of the corruption within the country. As a result, many of these kinds of murders are left unresolved, as no one is brave enough to even come forward under the brutality of the cartels if it's cartel related, and even if officials do make an arrest, it's never the head of the snake. The criminal case is still open, and her family will probably never receive the justice that they deserve, but had she heeded those warnings and stayed away from such dangerous topics, she may have escaped such a horrible demise. But not all content creators are this brave. It's one thing to be famous, but to flaunt it for the wrong reasons and make threats to other YouTubers shows a lack of wisdom.
This is the clip where he got beat up. Like, he had gloves and shit, and he lost the fight.
Character.
Aiden, you are a fucking liar! Lie to your audience! Yo, Aiden, lie to your audience again!
This YouTuber openly made some threats to another YouTuber, and in the end, his bark was worse than his bite. In fact, he was made a fool of in public, and rightfully so. You don't just go around throwing mud and expect not to get dirty, right? You see, Zaka started off in January 2019 as just a chatting profile on Twitch, but it seems that Zaka doesn't know what boundaries are, and has no problem crossing them.
Number two, the fucking pirate guy, I know him in real life. He doesn't have a job, he lives under a fucking bridge, I know him.
The first time he got banned was in June 2019, when he showed violent content of other banned streamers, which obviously goes against Twitch policies. The second time Zaka was banned, it was for a photo of a girl in a bikini on stream for a period. That ban lasted 1 month, and as per Zaka, he just thought it would be harmless and hoped to blow up women who pose in a sexual manner in pools. But basically just doing anything to stir up some traffic and attention. And it worked. Besides another 2-week ban that seems to be about Zaka's derogatory decorum on the platform, he was eventually banned indefinitely after clips surfaced of John with underage girls with some not so savory manners. However, John claims it was because of hate speech and using the N-word. Regardless, he was kicked off Twitch, but he didn't really seem fazed. As he'd already built up this loyal audience, through all this crazy stuff he was doing on Twitch, he was able to easily move on to YouTube and Kick. And sadly, because he gained attention from doing this in the first place, his demeanor only got worse. He became more and more crazy, more arrogant, and a menacing figure that gained a bunch of attention with a skyrocketing number of followers.
Do it on a lie detector test, clown white woman. Do it on a lie detector.
No one online was like him, saying the most crazy things from politics, religion, to sometimes just open racism.
Everyone was saying the N-word a couple of years ago, it changed.
Originally, John was a Muslim who converted to Christianity. However, it's hard to know whether any of this stuff is actually true. He claims to be, quote, the last masculine Christian.
There's no masculine Christians. Why do you think I'm leading the charge?
Or were acting out beliefs contrary to Christian standards.
Nah, he's a loser. He's a plant. Or like, I don't know what that stands for, but yeah, he's a loser.
For example, his own website advertises how to get women into bed. He's also apparently a flat earth believer.
NASA's the reason I became a flat earther, because this...
A promoter of drug use, and toxic manners and being masculine. All of this stuff is basically to say that he will do anything and say anything that's so crazy that he'll get views and virality. He was blowing up on all these platforms, especially Twitter, because of this, but soon he'd find another way to gain even more fame. He didn't need to just say outrageous stuff. If he said outrageous stuff about certain celebrities, especially within the online space, he could then use other people's fame and infamy to gain even more success. And so it didn't take long for him in interviews to openly insult people like Andrew Tate, calling him a bald midget. He did this a bunch to almost every influencer you can think of, but in November of 2023, Zaka decided to stir the pot once again with another degenerate called HS Tiki Toki.
Another degenerate.
By calling his mother a bitch.
Tiki Toki, your mother's a fucking whore!
This just blew up with the social media influencer community, but Zaka didn't stop there. He went on to say he had Pammy Baby, who was Aiden Ross's ex.
Trying to embarrass me? I Pammy. I literally Pammy.
It was getting so crazy, with Zaka's drug use getting out of hand, that people decided to finally take action against him. After he said the following quote,
"Where's your boy? He challenged me. He said Circle's a pussy. Circle's Tiki Talkie's mother. Come save your mother." Yeah. Hey, Tiki Talkie, Aiden Ross, J2 gang, where the you guys at?
All of this crazy stuff just added more fuel to the fire, and his manic state was getting worse. He was so far deep, he just decided to jump all in, going so far as to claim he would take on HS Tiki Talkie if he found him on the streets, and that's exactly what happened. It didn't take long for Zaka to find HS Tiki Talkie in Miami, and the two would quickly get into a physical altercation, which was to say the least, an absolute embarrassment to Zaka, and hilarious to everyone online. The fight went completely viral, with flowing comments not in Zaka's favor, but actually just making this guy HS Tiki Talkie seem to be the man of the fight, a fight that only lasted 2 minutes. It was hilarious. HS Tiki Talkie's all dressed up in a restaurant, and Zaka's prepared in his training gear, and still gets completely wiped to the floor by HS Tiki Talkie. And if anything,
What is HS Tiki Talkie? Who is that? I've seen the clip, but I don't know this guy. Street brawl with the kick streamer leaves fans in.
I think almost everyone online found this quite satisfying. A loudmouth getting silenced on the street, showing you can't just go after someone's family. And to be fair, HS Tiki Talkie was completely antagonized by Zaka, who was disgracefully disrespectful. Eventually someone was going to put him in his place. While some say it would have been better for HS Tiki Talkie to walk away, it wouldn't have had the same impact of the lesson so well delivered to Zaka. And nowadays no one ever hears of this guy anymore. After he got wiped to the floor, everyone just sees him for what he is. In an interview later, HS Tiki Talkie confirmed the reason behind the fight, saying he would never be friends with someone disrespecting his mother, and that was the reason for the fight.
I would never be friends with someone that calls my mum a whore, in a joking way or not.
Now Zaka does still make content, and recently he just picked on a fellow lady influencer, Sarah Safari, accusing her of clout chasing and telling her to stop being the town bicycle. This just goes to say that if you say the most degenerate things online, you can gain fame and money, but eventually you may face the consequences. You can't keep stirring the hornet's nest without being stung, it's just a matter of time. As was the case for the final guy on this list.
What? What's Boogie? Dude, this guy is like an OG, but he went through a lot of shit. What did he go through this time? Like, yeah.
A YouTuber known as Boogie2988 started this channel on April 5th, 2006, and mostly spoke about gaming and Dungeons and Dragons. Almost instantly, he became a viral sensation on the internet. Even today, everybody knows about him, and his online character called Francis. As his online character, he said a bunch of unfiltered stuff, and ultimately, this would lead to his demise and financial ruin. Why? Because eventually, everything you say catches up with you, especially on
Really? Oh my god.
online.
One for me and one for the hooker. One for me and one for my hooker.
He would constantly vlog his life, make jokes, jump into swimming pools as this obese man, and ramble on in his videos. And by doing this, he was able to make a fortune. But eventually he would start saying things that would offend the wrong people. He was known to use the N-word on more than one occasion.
And I know that I could still be and be white.
And as time went by, more and more of his viewers would find the flaws in his character to be unacceptable, especially when it came out that he was verbally and emotionally abusive to his wife.
My anxiety was so bad that she was kind of walking on eggshells all the time because she was afraid of scaring me, upsetting me, hurting me.
During a podcast, Boogie2988 made a statement that there was a lot of medical good that came out of the Holocaust.
If you think about it, a lot of some good came from all of that.
He later retracted the statement, but it was too late. Hiding behind dark humor, he made fun of his dead ex-girlfriend and claimed that the dark humor was shared.
What? What?
And that his ex-girlfriend would have appreciated the sentiment.
And yeah, so f her. And now she's dead. And actually, both of them are dead. The girl is dead, my mom is dead, everyone I know and love is dead.
Wait, the girl died?
Whoa.
It was really distasteful. Christopher Tom, another YouTuber, exposed Boogie2988 in 2019. He put out a 54-minute long video explaining why Boogie was losing subscribers fast. And the video showed that Boogie really wasn't a great person, saying things like he wants to suck Mickey Mouse's big dick, which is just so dumb and vulgar.
Please give daddy your money or else I'll never be able to suck Mickey Mouse off. I want to suck Mickey Mouse's big
big dick.
Boogie did a bunch of unsavory stuff, and it went on for years, and this video would go on way too long to mention all the bad stuff he's ever done in his life. But eventually, as his audience started leaving and the money started sucking up, he would then regularly speak about his mental health, playing the sympathy card. He'd say things about how he can't wait to die as long as he can eat and be happy, but when a concerned fan, Alan, who seemed to really care, responded publicly that friends and family of Boogie should encourage him to get help.
So my plea to the family and friends of Boogie 2988, somebody get a hold of him and talk to him about getting some inpatient therapy.
He would retaliate by saying Alan wasn't genuine, and if he was, he would have contacted him himself, and then he would move on to the next health issue.
Number 2, my primary focus is not on my body right now. My primary focus is on my brain.
Constantly begging his audience for money just so that he could survive, even though he'd made hundreds of thousands of dollars years before. And by 2020, almost all of his audience had gone. His views had plummeted, and another YouTuber, Frank Hassel's account was terminated for publicly harassing people and blamed Boogie in a Twitter comment.
I get banned from YouTube. You know, it was inevitable, I guess, when you thoroughly dominate someone, they want to enact revenge somehow.
Now, Boogie was in desperate measures by this point. His mental and physical health was declining, his money shriveling up, and the stress was getting to him. So Boogie didn't take this well, and Frank and Boogie got into a bit of a back and forth verbal brawl, but it seemed to only escalate when Boogie threatened to kill Frank.
I made it very clear. He goes home in a body bag.
So Frank actually found Boogie's house and went out looking.
What the fuck? What was going on?
For him, going right up to his house, and Boogie was standing right outside his front door with a gun, telling Frank to leave. And by this point, this whole Twitter brawl had gotten way out of hand, and Frank wasn't budging or leaving. Now, Frank's demeanor was insulting, antagonistic, and all the while clearly mocking Boogie. So Boogie spoke back behind closed doors, letting Frank know he would be coming out with a gun, and when Frank became almost mockingly frenzied, after Boogie opened the door and dared him to shoot, Boogie did actually fire a warning shot. Perhaps it was because Frank realized Boogie meant business and the gun was real that he did actually leave.
I'm asking you to leave. I'm asking you to leave, man. Please don't make me do this.
Boogie wouldn't take this whole instance lightly. He made a video about Frank stalking him and said that Frank had driven a few states over to deliver on his threats. He had let Boogie know he was there by taking photos and tagging Boogie online so that Boogie could see that Frank was actually there.
Unfortunately, on Saturday, this gentleman decided to drive over a few states to show up in Northwest Arkansas and start taking photos in the area to prove that he was here and calling me names on Twitter and tagging me in it.
It was a line crossed, and of all the things that Boogie's ever done in his life, this would end up being the thing to take him down, as an arrest warrant was placed for Boogie on May 11th, 2021, where he would decide to turn himself in on May 12th, 2021, and pay $5,000. He said he'd been coping with this whole situation with therapy and medicines, although it seemed like Boogie got the short end of the stick for defending himself. No one was actually hurt, and one could easily count their blessings that it was a short-lived incident. But after this, he would lose even more followers, and so in an attempt to redeem himself, he made a documentary called The Dark Sad Life of Boogie 298, produced by Mike Klum. And although the documentary was very well done, it just showed how depressing Boogie's life has become.
I am disabled, recognized by the state of Arkansas, but also the United States government. The downside to that is I am extremely depressed, so there's some mental health issues that we bring to the table. Physically, I am morbidly obese. I have no references, no work history, and no education.
And it seems like these incidences of running into the wrong people like Frank is just going to continue on in his life if he doesn't sort out the major problems holding back his YouTube career.
Damn, so that's it. Damn. Wild. Oh. Wild stuff. Wild stuff, dude. Makes me think about the internet. It makes me think about a lot of things. So what do you think about this? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching with me. See ya in the next video. Peace.